Okay, so question for you guys, just to keep this nice and interactive. Oh, good morning, Jasmine. Welcome. Teacher Joe. We've only just started. We're a bit late today because of some techie problems. But yeah, just type in some thoughts about what is advocacy. What type of words do you use to describe it? Do you have a definition that you use? Do you have a nice succinct line that you know, when you go to a party and somebody says, what do you do? What do you tell them? So just chuck in the box, what is advocacy? And that'll give us a nice starter. So Andrew, you've said helping somebody to be heard. Yeah, beautiful, nice and simple. And it is absolutely about voice and being heard, being involved. Yeah, nice start. Jasmine, Lisa, have you got anything you wanted to add? So advocacy, supporting people to be heard, understood and understand. So you've gone a little bit deeper there. And yeah, all of those things are right, of course. What was nice about Angie's definition is it kind of captures that self-advocacy, and yours does, Jasmine, around we're not speaking for the person unless they want us to. I'll come to that in a second, in a few slides' time. But yes, essentially about that empowerment for helping that person to be heard and to speak up. Okay, conscious, don't this to be too basic, because I think you guys... okay, I'll crack on and maybe push a little bit as we go. So this is the definition of independent advocacy. This comes from the Advocacy Charter. So this is kind of what the sector created. I think it was probably written about 2009, 2010. So it's fairly well accepted. We're just going to break it down a little bit because there's a few elements in here which are quite interesting. So the first thing is exactly what you've said. It's about taking action to help people say what they want. So this is the idea. It's about voice. It's about us being on their side, isn't it? It's about us, no matter what they want, we are there to help them express that. And as you know, there are times in everybody's life where expressing what we want to say can be difficult. And that can be because of internal barriers, like I don't like my own mental health, my own ability to express my cognitive understanding of being able to identify what it is what I want. And then there are external barriers like systems, like environment, like other professionals not listening, cultures. They're all external things that prevent people saying what it is they want. So that's our fundamental purpose, to help that person say what they want. But then the second element is also about their rights. And then we introduce this idea of representation. So we are there to help the person. Hi, Lisa, don't worry. Chuck in when you want to. It's to help that person by speaking on their behalf. And there's only two instances really when you would speak on somebody's behalf. One is when they want you to, and this can be for a number of reasons. And I've had lots of people when I've done advocacy where they've just not felt able to and said, oh, will you say that for me? Which is fine. And that's when we do a representation. And then the other one is when the person lacks capacity to instruct us or to represent themselves. Now, in NHS complaint systems, it's unlikely that you're going to be kind of representing people who lack capacity, which is a broader issue, I think, in complaints advocacy, because we haven't really figured out how people who lack capacity, how complaints can be made on their behalf. If they've got family members to do it, great. But if they haven't, then I think that's problematic. But nonetheless, thinking broader of what advocacy is, we can represent the person, that's fine. The third point is a very, very clear statement that the person I'm supporting, so my partner, I am totally on their side. And that can present ethical dilemmas if the person wants something that you think is harmful. And it can also present practical dilemmas. So how do you actively and passionately support somebody's choice when you think it's harmful? For instance, if you're in a mental health setting and the person is, you know, you've been working with somebody for a long time, they are on, they're taking some medication, you can see the benefits that the medication's having, and then they say to you, I want to stop it, I'm coming off the medication, and you're sitting there thinking, gosh, you know, this is the most well I've seen you, and you're privately thinking, don't. But as an advocate, we take their side, and that's what we do. In complaints, you know, if you think about the legitimacy of complaints, the whole point of the process is to establish whether this complaint is valid and what redress should happen. Sometimes we will be working with people, I'm sure you've had this, where the person, the complaint kind of isn't fair or isn't valid. And I remember a complaint advocate telling me about a lady who, I think she was in her 70s, and she wanted to complain about the way the treatment her husband had received, and he'd passed away, and that's why she wanted to complain. She felt that the hospital could have done more, and the advocate was spending a lot of time trying to help the lady figure out what it is that she wanted from the complaint. And of course, after a period of time of talking about that, she broke down crying and said, I just want my husband back. Now, the complaint process obviously can't achieve that, but it's for the advocate, of course, we are just on that person's side. It doesn't matter what they want, whether it's fair, whether it's not, whether it's risky. And I do think that it's quite tough, that. Yeah, I've had it myself, where a young lady wanted to discharge herself from care. And I was thinking, oh, God, don't, because if you do, you're going to be homeless, you're going to not have any support. But as an advocate, if that's what she wants, that's what I'm going to help her achieve. So never underestimate the power of kind of giving up our perceptions of what's right, what should happen, how to fix it. I don't know if I'm a fixer, you know, you see things, you want to go in and fix it, make it better. That's not what advocacy is. Advocacy is taking that person's side and supporting them achieve whatever goals they want. The only exception to that would be anything that's illegal. So this is kind of where I can, if somebody was to kind of share racist views, which I've had, then I wouldn't be promoting that. I would not be taking their side, and I would explain that in terms of, you know, illegality, that it's illegal to do that, if that makes sense. Okay, so far so good. This all making sense, guys? Chuck in if you've any thoughts. Yeah, great. A few comments on this last bit here, about advocacy promoting social inclusion and equality and social justice. So this really acknowledges the advocacy. If you think about why we have advocacy, in an ideal world, we wouldn't have advocacy, because the systems, health and care systems, would be, they'd work so that people were already understood and already heard and empowered to take control. But the truth is that they don't. And, well, we know from our experience that it's the opposite, that it can be disempowering, and people are de-skilled in taking control, and opportunities are restricted to have a good life, if you will. So advocacy kind of is in response to social exclusion and inequality and a lack of social justice. So if we think around kind of what the point of advocacy is, yes, we exist to help the individual to say what they want. Yes, we help the individual to get the things they need and they're saying they want. Yes, we exist so that the individual has somebody on their side. But as well as supporting the individual, advocacy has to feed into this broader social change. And in my view, this is the bit that we often forget about. We're really good at this, but really good at the one-to-one stuff. But the broader issues that we see, advocacy has a role to play in shining a light in when systems are crap and not working. And it doesn't take me long to think around complaints. If you're working as a complaint, you'll be seeing people complain about the same thing. If you're working in a mental health setting, you will see people struggle with the same issues of medication, of leave, of staffing. If you're working as a Care Act advocate, you'll see the same barriers in getting the person-centred care. It's the same things time and time again. Now, if we're advocating for the individual, that's fine. But when you've got 20 individuals all complaining about the same thing, that's where we need to think, okay, how do we kick it up a level to change the system, if that makes sense. Now, as an individual advocate, we're not expecting you to do this by yourself. This is about us as a sector. So this is about you as an individual feeding into your service and talking to your managers around how do we do that as a service. Right, let's have a quick look at the standards. So this is what the standards look like. They're taken from the Advocacy Charter, which was, I think I've got an older picture there actually. It was originally written by Action for Advocacy and now it's owned by the National Development Team for Inclusion, NDTI. If you Google it, you'll get it online. And if you're doing the qualification with us, it's in your e-learning, the actual document is. And it has 11 standards which define independent advocacy. And basically, if you fail to do any of these, then you're not doing independent advocacy. And they're all, fairly straightforward. So I don't think I need to go in detail. They basically say this. The standout ones are independence, that you do not deliver any health or care services, that structurally you're independent from the organisation you are offering advocacy to. That matters when, particularly in care homes and hospitals. In the olden days, when advocacy started, you'd often get a care home set up an advocacy service, and that's just not independent. That is kind of well established now. Person-centred approach, I think, is the one thing that defines us as separate from everybody else. And I don't actually like person-centred. It should be person-led. We are led 100% by whatever that person says. We don't have a view on best interests. We don't have a view on what should happen. We're not there to fix things. We are there to be led by that person. No matter what it is they want to say, we are helping them to say it. And confidentiality is probably the other. If you think of it like a three-legged stool, independent, being client-led, and confidential are the three legs, if you like, about what makes us different. And nobody offers total confidentiality. So that's, well established. But what we do is that we offer very high levels of confidentiality. And I think it's, oh, sorry, headphones fallen off. When you look at your confidential policies on paper, they're probably very similar to social workers and care home confidential policies that, you'll only share information when there's safeguarding. But in other settings, I think there is an emphasis on information sharing in order to meet the needs of a person. Advocates, we don't do that. So you never share your notes with social workers. You're not showing your records to anybody other than you and your partner. Within your organisation, the only people who should see those notes are people who need to, for persons doing the job. It's not as if everybody should have access to everybody else's notes. And yeah, we only ever breach confidentiality in very extreme circumstances where somebody's, basically is in quite immediate risk. And even then, we still, there's a balance there. Our emphasis is on still being person-led. So even if we do have to breach confidentiality, it's always about trying to involve that person as much as we can and give them as much control through that process. Even if they don't want us to disclose, then we have to still, involve them as much as we can. Right, let's go to our next slide. So myths. So these are the kind of the big ones that we come across. First one is we promote best interests. So absolutely categorically not. Even if the person lacks capacity and you have to use non-instructed advocacy, we're still not promoting best interests. There's no place in advocacy for best interests. And the reason for that is because of the second one. We do not make decisions. So the myth is advocates make decisions. We don't make decisions. And that includes best interest decisions. We don't, if you think about a best interest decision, it's just a judgment. It's just somebody's professional opinion about what is in a person's best interest. And that's a decision. So as an advocate, stay away from it. We're not there to make decisions, and you will be asked. If you haven't already, you will be asked in your first 6 months of working as an advocate, what do you think? Professionals, and well-meaning professionals, I don't want this to be a criticism, they'll often say, is that okay to you, the advocate, as if it's up to you. They will say, especially in best interest meetings, do you agree? Do you disagree? What's your, do you have a view? So always just try and put the focus back on your partner. So the simplest thing when that happens, because it will happen, is to just say, turn to your partner and say, over to you, is that okay with you? Ask them the question that you've been asked. But we don't. And as I say, that's the same. Sometimes people get confused when the person lacks capacity. And people think that because they lack capacity, then the advocacy changes, and it doesn't. Advocacy for people who can instruct you and can't instruct you is the same. It's about voice and rights. It's not about us making decisions about best interests. The third myth is this: we're there to mediate or resolve disputes. And I seem to get that a lot. I don't know if that's because of my personality, but I often get kind of professionals asking me to explain things to my partner. And there's a balance here between providing access to information and helping a person explore information. There's a balance between doing that, which is okay, and kind of being the bearer of news or the source of information, and that can be problematic. For instance, if you think about a mental health setting, let's imagine that you've got somebody who wants to apply for leave, and they ask you, can I apply for leave? And one advocate goes to the professionals, goes to the clinician, says, can my partner apply for leave? And the professional gives you the answer, says yes or no, these are the reasons. And then you go back and then explain that to your partner. What you've done there isn't bad advocacy, but you've become the kind of conduit of for the professionals, and you've kind of taken on their role of explaining things, which can then step into that mediation. So it's much better to simply help the person in this instance to go directly to the clinician themselves and say, well, okay, you want leave? Shall I come with you while you ask? Or if you don't want to ask, you come with me. So at least, we're facilitating that communication between professional and partner, not you and the professional. So I think it's a general kind of approach that works. And then the last myth is about giving advice. So it's very, very difficult not to, but we're not there to share our opinion, and we're not there to give advice. We're there to help the person work out their choices and views. Okay, the things to think about. The first thing to think about are endings. So even when you're at the beginning of your relationship, you need to think about how you're going to withdraw. And it's almost like there's this balance between helping the person and developing rapport and trust versus becoming like them being dependent on you. And it's a really, really tricky balance to get, because to get rapport, it needs to be authentic, and you need to kind of bring yourself to the relationship. And for it to be authentic, authenticity is about being real, isn't it? It's not about, I'm only available for 10 minutes a day. You really should be available when they need you. but you're not the family, you're not support, you're not the social worker, you're not there to fix. So all of these things, I'd be encouraging you to think about your boundaries. And the easiest way to do this, in my experience, is to focus on the issue. So whenever you feel that you're getting sucked into doing different things, or that the relationship is becoming a bit too dependent, focus on the issue. So get back to reviewing what it is you're there to achieve with them. Has that changed? Have they achieved it? Because you don't want, I mean, I think lots of people get really annoyed with the amount of professionals in their life. So as an advocate, you don't want to just be another professional dipping in and out. That, I mean, I think that can be quite abusive, the amount of people dipping in and out. So we don't want to do that. But we don't want to be the only, well, it's difficult, isn't it? Because you might be the only person on their side. But yeah, if you feel that it's getting a bit messy, focus on the issue. That's the best advice I can give you, is to focus on what outcome that they wanted you to help them achieve, and get back to that. So they're the boundaries. The advocacy models that we've got peer advocacy, which is this idea that somebody with lived experience or similar experience comes together to offer support and help to somebody in a similar situation. So that has a great history in settings such as leaving care, where you've got a young care leaver with similar experiences support one another, or mental health sessions. That can be great. Group advocacy is obvious. That's where a group of people come together to either campaign on a collective issue or to just simply offer support. And where I've seen that really work is groups of people, adults with learning disabilities, perhaps come together to raise awareness or campaign on a specific issue locally. Legal advocacy is your barristers and solicitors, and that type of advocacy, which is very specific in what it wants to achieve. Citizen advocacy is when what we might class as, I mean, citizen advocacy was kind of where advocacy started, to be honest. So it started in the 70s for adults with learning disabilities who wanted a long-term relationship with somebody who could support them on issues like rights, on issues like getting a good life. But it was also just about normal living, you know. So citizen advocate, as I understand it, you know, could go to the pub as well as filling forms and do all the other rights-based. And as professional advocacy has grown, we've seen a kind of a negative impact on citizen advocacy. I think that's fair to say. And then one-to-one issue-based advocacy is the stuff that you'll be doing. So this is where it's between you and a partner, and it's on a specific issue, and you go in and then you help resolve that issue and then you leave. So that's what we call issue-based advocacy. And the statutory advocacy that we've got in her Care Act complaints, that's all based on the model of issue-based advocacy. As we get a bit more sophisticated, more services are thinking how we pull in the other types of advocacy into statutory advocacy. So how does a statutory advocacy service kind of bring in peer advocacy skills or support groups of people to come together to do mental health advocacy, or like carers coming together to support one another. So they're the different models. And yeah, that's the kind of end of my slides. Gosh, that feels like it's gone really, really quick just because it's such a small group today. But yeah, any questions? So we've looked at the definition, we've looked at some myths. Over to you guys. What any questions or comments, or how's it going if you've just started working as an advocate? What are the things that you find difficult? What are the things that are dead easy? Anything I've said there that's controversial? Kind of give me over to you, because we've got plenty of time and we are a really small group, so we can do a bit of specific discussions if you want. So Andrew said about the hard thing isn't giving advice. so you find that difficult, and you're in a particular position, aren't you, Andrew, working as a complaints advocate, where people kind of need advising on the best route to go with their complaint. So I think, yeah, you've got a particular tightrope to navigate, because they might, I think in complaints, am I right in thinking they might want, you know, people might say, I want them sacked, I want this doctor sacked, I want, you know, and you'll think, well, you're not going to get that. But if that's where you need to go to this, you need to put in a complaint to the, I don't know, the GNC, or but not go through the NHS complaints, and that could be advising, couldn't it? But yeah, it's difficult. Yeah. Okay. Daphne says, other professionals asking for our opinion or to make a decision. Yeah, it's so prevalent, isn't it? It really is. The best thing I've ever done was, I remember in a meeting where the professional kept asking, I was with my partner, it was a young person, and the chair kept talking to me, and it was like really, really uncomfortable. She kept addressing the questions to me, she kept addressing the points to me, and it was to be honest, it was really odd. And my young person sitting right next to me, and all I did, and to be honest, it's probably because I was feeling really uncomfortable, all I did is I just kind of turned my head and stared at my partner, the young person, and naturally, because of the way humans are, the chair wanted eye contact with me, and I wanted to give her eye contact, but because I wasn't, the chair eventually started talking to my young person. And I thought, that's an interesting, I learned something around non-verbals, around you don't always have to say to the professionals, look, can you do this, or can you not do that? Sometimes just through our body language and behaviour, we can get them to take our partner more seriously. He says, I've had that a few times with the clients, over they do not speak to each other but try through me. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and I think it's always, when they do ask you for your opinion, I always say thank you. You know, thank you for asking me for a view. But as an advocate, I don't have one. I'm here for my partner. So we don't, you know, we don't have to be difficult with them. And I do think people are well-meaning, because they're used to being in multidisciplinary teams, used to making decisions by consensus, and all, you know. So I don't want to criticise them, if that makes sense. So thank you for asking that. But, you know, I'm just here for my partner. Let's ask her, let's ask him. Lisa said, when I feel like I'm struggling with a specific situation, I like to look back at the basic information of what I'm asking, is this what I'm, beautiful. Yeah, really nice, beautiful. And it's so easy, I think, to start to fix things, especially when people's lives are complex and they want different things and they're changing. I'm working with somebody now who she's unhappy with so much that it's difficult to pinpoint the advocacy issue, because she'll just like vomit all the, you know, she'll just go, I hate this, he's a bastard, you know, and it's kind of, okay, which one do you want us to work on today? And she'll switch, you know, it'll be kind of, well, I'm moaning about this, then I'm complaining about this, and I'm happy with this. It's kind of, okay, well, let's hone it down. And it can be difficult, because if that's where she's at, that's where she's at. I'm not going to be able to fix that. But yeah, but thinking, what is it I'm doing is a beautiful question. Yeah, great question. We do offer something called action learning sets, which are really small groups. It's the same group you meet every month, just online, like a webinar. And Capture runs them, if you know Capture. And what they look at is specific issues that you are struggling with. So if you're interested in that, for kind of practice guidance, book on to the next session. I think Sarah's just about to email everybody with some dates. So they're called action learning sets. But they're really good, especially if you're new in advocacy, because it helps you develop your own skill set in resolving issues, if that makes sense. Okay, well, if there's nothing else, we can kind of finish the session. We've covered everything. We looked at the standards. Any other? I'm just thinking if I've missed anything, but I don't think so. I mean, it's really straightforward. It's about voice. It's about rights. and constantly be asking yourself, is what I'm doing getting the person closer to their goals? You know, is that what I'm doing? What you've said, Lisa? Yeah. Okay. Any other questions or comments then before we sign off? Nope. All right then, guys. Well, good luck. And if anything, if there's anything that we've said today that's kind of played on your mind, give us a call. We're here to support you in your learning. And I'll probably see you on some further ones. All right. Take care. Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.